Good morning. We will pay attention to credit purchases and payments to creditors in the cash budget. The following information is available. The provisional budgeted amounts, the total sales, 120, 150 and 180,000. It is very important here to determine whether the total sales are given or whether the credit sales are given. If they don't give us the total purchases and we have to calculate the purchases using the profit percentage, it means that you have to work on total sales because your cash and credit sales must be replaced. The information is 20% of the total sales will be on credit. Okay, credit sales during March amounted to 15,000. So I can determine how much we will get out of that money in the future. The business maintains a profit of 50% on cost. If they give you this profit markup, in the majority of cases, they will not give you the purchases amount, and you will have to use this markup percentage to calculate what is the cost price of the goods that were sold, because the cost price of goods sold equal the amount that you pay for the goods when you buy it. Then we will look at the trailing stock and how it's replaced. And it's very important to read very carefully whether you pay in the same month or whether you pay in a month following the purchases. It is replaced in the same month. So in the month that we sell goods, we have to replace it and buy new goods, so that we will have a constant inventory level. Credit purchases of trading inventory during March 2013 was 37,500. So they give us the March purchases, but they don't give us the purchases for the additional months. Of the total amount that we buy, 75% of the total purchases will be on credit. How do we pay suppliers? 40% in the month of the purchase. So it means if you buy something in March, you will pay it in March. Why do you pay it the same month? To obtain 20% discount. The following month, so if you buy in March, you will pay 40% in March, and in April, you will pay 60% in the month that follows the purchases. It is very important to determine how much will be paid in the month that you bought the goods. So remember that figure, because we're going to do this calculation now. 40% to obtain 20%. And the month following the purchases will be 60%. So we will first do the calculation to determine how much do we buy. And remember that the profit on cost price is 50%. If we look at the calculations, they gave us the total purchases for March as 37,500. In the month of purchases, we pay 40% to get 20% discount. March is not in our period that we have to do for the budget, so we will not do a calculation for March. In April, we will get 60% of that 37,500 will have to be paid in April. If we look at the April credit purchases, is 60,000. In the month that you buy the goods, you will pay 40% to obtain 20% discount. So you can either say 60,000 times 40% will give me 24,000, and then I deduct 12,000 from 24,000 and it will give me the 19,200. Or I can say of the 60,000, we will pay 40%, and we don't pay the full 40% because we get 20% discount. We will only pay 80% of the amount, so we will pay 19,200. The month following the April purchases, in May, we will pay 60% of the 60,000, and that will give us 36,000. In May, we buy for 75,000. So in May, we will pay 40% to obtain 20% discount. So it means we will only pay 80% of the 40%, and that will give me the 24,000. And then in June, I will pay 60% of the 75,000, and that will give me 45,000. In June, we buy for 90,000 on credit. So that means that we will have to work out how much we will pay in June. Because we paid in the month of purchases, we will pay 40% to obtain 20% discount. So we will only pay 80% of the amount. So if we look at the payments to creditors, in April, we pay the 22,500 and we pay the 19,200. So we will show that those two amounts will be paid in April to give me a total payment of 41,700. In May, we will pay 60% of the 60,000, and of the 75,000, we will pay 24,000. So that will give me the total payment in May as 60,000. In June, we will pay 45,000 and 28,000, and that will give me a total of 73,800. If we want to determine our total purchases amount, if it is not given in the exercise as in this specific exercise, we have to use the profit percentage. So we will go and look at the total sales. In March, they gave us the credit sales as 75,000. So it means that the total credit sales was 75. The cost is 50% on cost price markup. So 75,000 times 100 over 150. So my total purchases will be 50,000. Of the total purchases, 75% of the total purchases is on credit and 25% is for cash. So I will work out 75% of 50,000, giving me 37,500. And 25% of 50,000 will give me 12,500. If we look at the total sales in April is 120,000. Now we have to determine what is the cost price of the 120,000 because they don't give us our total purchases. So the profit percentage is 50% on cost price. So if I calculate the cost price, it will equal the total purchases during April as 80,000. Of that 80,000, 75% will be credit purchases and 25% of the 80,000 will be cash purchases. If we look at the amount during May, the total sales was 150,000. Of that 150,000, we have to calculate 100 over 150 to determine what is the cost price of the goods that were sold. That cost price will equal the amount that we buy. Total purchases is 100,000. 75% of 100,000 will give me 75. 25% of 100,000 will give me 25. So it's very important to determine, first of all, whether they give you the total purchases. If they don't give you the purchases, it means that you will have to use the profit percentage to calculate what is the total purchases. So this is very important if the purchase figure is not given so that you can determine the total purchases. Then you will take the credit purchases in this column and you will determine how much of that money will be paid in the same month as of payment to obtain 20% discount, what will be paid in the following month, the 60%. Okay, so if we look at our calculations, the total sales was 100%, so 50,000 times 100 over 20 will give us 75,000. That we had to calculate. Okay, and the cost price every time you will take 100 over 150 to calculate the cost price. What did we learn today? If the purchase is not provided, the profit percentage must be used to calculate the total purchases. So it means you have to use your total sales times the profit percentage to determine your total purchases. Then you will take this total purchases to determine how much of the total purchases is cash purchases and how much is credit purchases. And then you determine how will you pay for the credit purchases. Is the first payment in the same month of purchases or is it in the month following purchases? It is very important to determine if it's in the same month or whether it's the following month. Otherwise, all your calculations will go in the wrong column. Then you have to determine whether they will give us discount for prompt settlement of the account. So if there's discount, because we pay quickly, it means that we have to subtract the discount after we calculated what is the amount that we have to pay in that month. So we say, for instance, 100,000 times 40%, we have to pay 40,000 in that month. Because I pay quickly, I get 20% discount. So on the 40,000, I'll work out 20%, giving me 8,000 Rand. So that means we will only pay 32,000. So it's very important to determine whether there's discount, because if there's discount, the amount that will be paid will not be the full amount for the month. You have to subtract the discount from this amount that you calculated for the month to determine what is the actual amount that will be paid.